Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. It's truly a pleasure to welcome you all to our inaugural CFA Society Boston Financial Literacy Leadership Summit. My name is Andrew Tubman. I'm chair of the CFA Society of Boston. Thank you for taking the time to join us today, both in person as well as virtually. Your presence speaks to a shared commitment we all have, which is expanding access to financial knowledge and empowering individuals and communities to make informed financial decisions. This summit marks an important milestone for CFA Society Boston. While our financial literacy initiative has been growing steadily for over a decade, today is about bringing together the people, partners, and ideas that will shape its future. For those who may be newer to our work, the CFA Society Boston Financial Literacy Initiative, which is a mouthful, was established to address a simple but critical need: access to unbiased, high-quality financial education. Since its founding, it's been a strategic priority for our organization, grounded in the belief that financial literacy is essential to economic opportunity and community well-being. What makes this initiative unique is our model. We are entirely volunteer-driven, powered by investment professionals who give their time to deliver the educational programming directly with the community. Rather than expecting learners to come to us, we meet them where they are, through partnerships with schools, nonprofits, libraries, workplace programs, and organizations across Greater Boston. Through this hub-and-spoke approach, we've built a scalable and impactful network that allows us to reach diverse audiences, from students and young professionals to families to older adults. And importantly, everything we do is unbiased. We do not sell products. We are educators, mentors, and role models. None of this work would be possible without the incredible dedication of our volunteers. To those of you in the room or online who have led presentations, built partnerships, reviewed content, or just stepped into support and offering, thank you. You're the foundation of this initiative, and your willingness to share your expertise is what makes the effort both credible and impactful. And to our alliance organizations, thank you for opening your doors to us and helping us connect with audiences who benefit most from this work. This initiative succeeds because of collaboration. I also want to extend a sincere gratitude to our summit sponsors, Bank of America, Fiduciary Trust, Longfellow Investment Management, and Vanguard. Your support makes today's events possible and helps bring together this community of leaders, partners, volunteers, and we are deeply appreciative of your partnership. That spirit of partnership is exactly what today is about. The summit is designed to build on that collaboration, creating space to learn from one another, share ideas, and think more intentionally about how we grow our impact in the years ahead. With that, it's now my pleasure to introduce you our keynote speaker, Treasurer Deborah Goldberg. Treasurer Goldberg has been a tireless advocate for financial empowerment in the Commonwealth. Through her leadership, she has championed initiatives that promote financial education, consumer protection, and economic inclusion. Her work aligns closely with the mission we are advancing here today, and we're honored to have you join us. Treasurer Goldberg.
Hi, everybody. That was loud. I am going to apologize right at the beginning. I was not going to miss today. However, I had a bug last week, and I get asthma at this time of year if I get a cold. And so if I start coughing, please bear with me. I have an inhaler, I have cough drops, I have water, but there was no way I was going to skip today. So I knew you all would be very supportive of me, and so that's why I said I can still do it. So I am truly delighted to be in a room with people who think the same way I do. That doesn't happen all the time. And before I ever became treasurer, it was really clear to me that we had a huge gap of knowledge. I mean, here in Massachusetts, you know, we're so brilliant and we have the greatest scientists and the greatest medical people. And yet, when the subprime mortgage crisis hit in 2008 and 9, we had not given people the financial skills they needed to survive that. And what I joked about at the time when I was first running for treasurer back in 2014, I said, you know, I never needed to compare the rate of speed between Boston and Albany to the rate of speed between Boston and Pittsburgh. But you know what? if I bought a house and the value went down, it would sure be a pretty good thing to know how much my mortgage payment would go up. And that was how I was trying to define to people what understanding and giving people the skills they need to survive literally in our very complex financial world was all about, and that it was truly appropriate to be doing that from the treasurer's office. I ran for this office because for me, it was really to promote economic stability and economic security for everyone. And they were not, those aren't just a buzzword to me, they're really guiding principles. It's why I created the Office of Economic Empowerment and our office, which is known as OEE, because everything has to be initials. OEE helps residents across Massachusetts learn how to confidently manage today's economic landscape and plan for their family's future. We believe that that is the foundation upon which we build an economy that works for everyone. As I said, the importance of financial education cannot be overstated. It's not simply about understanding money. It's essential skills that equip us with the tools to build a secure future, particularly in underserved communities. Therefore, it is critical to provide this kind of education for everyone. Research shows that early learning on how to navigate personal finances can have a lasting impact on people's lives. Students who have been taught these concepts in school are more likely to save their money, more likely to have invested money, and less likely to take on credit card debt. This is why, in partnership with many educators and advocates in this room today, my office offers grants for high schools across the state to deliver credit for life fairs to their students. What I couldn't believe, and let's not forget the COVID years, we have actually reached 96,000 high school students. And last week, I was at a Credit for Life fair at South Shore Voc Tech School, Go Vikings. And the kids were so funny. I got up and I figured they probably think this boring person, treasurer, what does the treasurer do? And I got up and I went, Go Vikings! And they all started jumping up and down. So I proved I was cool. But whenever I attend, how many here have been to a Credit for Life fair? Well, if you haven't lived. The structure, some of them are structured differently, and so it's worthwhile going to more than one. But one of the things that I do when I attend one is I then ask the kids at the end what have you learned? And even though it's just one morning, because it's experiential learning, it really hits home. And an ideal timing in their junior and senior years, which is when we want to get them before they take on those huge college loans. This is why I'm going to skip forward. I always, I never read speeches, and they said I should. I could just stand up here and talk for a half an hour. Alexa, I've already said all the things on your paper. I'm just going to talk. How's that sound? Okay. When we first got into our office, I put together a task force in 2015 focused on financial education. And I brought 35 people into the room. Now, in state government, everybody's used to task forces and they don't do anything. And then they write a report and it sits on some shelf somewhere. But they weren't used to Deb Goldberg, the old grocer. And so they all came in and I said, I want this report. This was May. By November, I want an action plan. And then I want each and every one of you engaged in executing the action plan. They thought I was kidding. I wasn't. And within the next year and a half, we were able to do every single item on the action plan but one. And that was teach financial education in the schools. And that is the battle that we have taken on all these years. That's why I use the example of the silly word problem that was on every SAT or standardized test that I ever took, which was that rate of speed thing. You know, I'm the treasurer of the Commonwealth, and I didn't even need to know that for this. And I have so seriously thought this should be a no-brainer for the legislature to be able to enact this. But what we did, we saw a lot of resistance, and we saw it even in the schools. And so part of it was that the teachers didn't feel confident that they had the knowledge in order to teach kids the things that they need. And of course, they didn't. Many of them were themselves carrying student loans and trying to figure out how to balance everything. So we published a statewide report in 2021, which was the status of financial education in Massachusetts. And 73% reported they do not mandate schools to teach these competencies because, of course, this is all voluntary. And those that did, their content and scope varied widely. Across the United States, 30 of the 50 states now require a semester-long course, including Connecticut, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire. But Massachusetts is not one of them. Now, we did get it through the House last year. We did not get it through the Senate yet. And as the governor, who I've convinced that this was critical information for people, is helping develop new standards now that the MCAS no longer exists. She has grasped that financial education should be part of the new standards. However, I strongly feel that we do need the bill because we really want every school to have this kind of curriculum. And my office in the bill has volunteered to actually raise resources and help with teacher training. And because one of the issues is, of course, I came out of local government, is the question of unfunded mandates at the local level, not having the time, not having the money, and not having the capacity. Since we know that, we're here all in to help with that. But it's really, really important that we get this passed. I think that it's almost more important than anything else we could teach our kids. So I refiled the bill this session, and we've seen increased urgency on this initiative. And let's hope. Do any of you know who your state reps and state senators are? I see one hand. Tell them you want to see financial education in the schools. This is how it works. Grab them at the supermarket, in the drugstore, at the car wash. Bug them. So it has been great to have CFA's hand in this work, and I'm confident that we will make progress this session. However, since we didn't have universal financial education, I have used every single lever that I can find in order to wrap financial education around people. So I think that is anyone in the room familiar with baby steps? Well, of course you're familiar with it. You sit on she sits on our board. Thank you. So the other thing that I wanted to do was create a seeded savings plan for every baby born or adopted in Massachusetts. And I'm a big person to do pilots. So we did pilots in a couple of different school systems. And what we learned that is if we start at birth with families saving and planning, that kids are more likely to get a post-secondary education. And I'm not just referring to college, I'm referring to college, community college, and vocational and technical training. But that in Massachusetts, you absolutely must have some form of post-secondary education in order to get a good paying job here. So timing is everything in life. We were ready to roll when? January 2020. Does that date sound familiar to you? Baby Steps was literally kicked off in January in 2020 with and created, by the way, not with taxpayer dollars, but through a public-private partnership within the Financial Empowerment Trust Fund, which we have a 501c3 in our office, so that in order to be able to do public-private partnerships, and we seed every baby born or adopted in Massachusetts with an account of $50. And what do? We wrap financial education around them and their families. And believe it or not, obviously you're not teaching a newborn financial education, but by the time you get to 3, 4, 5 years old, there are all sorts of resources to teach kids the concepts at the level that they understand. In addition to that, we have Snap into Baby Steps, which is a collaboration between our office and the Department of Transitional Assistance that gives families enrolled in both SNAP benefits and Baby Steps an extra $120 to boost their child's educational savings. Now, this doesn't sound like a lot of money, but all the data out there shows that the goals are achieved on a surprising level. And the whole idea beyond savings and planning is the avoidance of debt. And that's been one of my things all along. How do we get people to plan and save and avoid debt? Because debt is one of the most crushing things to a family that can possibly happen. Excuse me a minute. Pages are sticking. All righty. So how are we doing? We're one of the most successful programs in the country. Since we started in 2020, and you have to give me a break, the first 2 years were not easy. I was supposed to be on a road show, going from hospital to hospital, talking to parents as they delivered their babies and saying, oh, and what I even was able to do was working with the Department of Health here in Massachusetts. I got a checkbox on the birth forms that literally says, would you like to have $50? By the way, there is skepticism. You can't just give people money. And in a lot of cultures, it scares people. So we've been very multicultural in how we approach our programs. Regardless, we have over 60,000 babies enrolled in our program. So that is a very exciting thing for me. And we've invested over $3 million in seed deposits with Baby Steps families who have contributed over $910 million to these accounts. So it can be done. And of course, moving from babies, we move directly into seniors, seniors are another group that have not been able to plan in many ways, have not been able to plan for retirement, and who are struggling with how are they going to balance everything in such a high-cost world. So we have been providing resources and support for seniors, particularly how to avoid frauds and scams, because they're very, very subject to frauds and scams. I mean, you don't have to be much of a senior. I had a friend of mine text me She was down in Florida this week, but her cell phone is a Massachusetts cell phone. And she said, why would the registry of motor vehicles, who here in the room has gotten this text? Why would the Massachusetts registry be telling me I owe them money? I said, they don't. It's a scam. Forget it. Delete.
The department offer with DMV and we get registered. So that was a hint that they just sent.
It's a good point. I don't think she picked that up. So one of the ways we reach people is we've developed a community ambassadors program. And ambassadors are volunteers, like many of you, who help spread the word about financial empowerment initiatives, host workshops, and conduct community assessments to help inform us about program and policy priorities. And it's instead of from the State House, we make pronouncements and make decisions about what's good for everybody. It's from the bottom up. Our community ambassadors are members of their community. They speak the language of the community that they're in. They understand who they're working with, and they bring so many interesting ideas back to us that are far more effective than us sitting in a room and trying to figure out what is it people need. So and our community ambassadors also, particularly with seniors, work to support them by connecting individuals with the organizations that have services for senior adults. Our ambassadors have been working hard hosting a budgeting workshop series for seniors at Brockton Housing Authority, sharing resources to Central Boston Elder Services, and presenting at the Everett Senior Center. In addition to these offerings, our Worth and Wealth, and I'm not good with, all programs have cute little catchphrases. I mess them up all the time. But so what was it I always call worth and wealth? Worth and wellness is what I call it. I don't know why, but maybe worth and wellness is what it is because it's financial wellness. Worth and Wealth seminars offer workshops and access to one-on-one coaching with an accredited financial coach. We continue to see scam and fraud prevention arise as a popular topic during these sessions. So we make sure that people across Massachusetts have access to the tools they need to succeed after they've left a workshop. We've created a personal financial checklist specifically for seniors. The first module on the list is protecting yourself from identity theft and fraud. And through our Enrich platform, residents of all ages can access financial education online for free. This spring, we launched an initiative for Financial Literacy Month with Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners to offer money management resources from this platform. Now that you have an idea of what we do at Treasury, I want to share some news with you about a project that OEE has been working on. To provide insight into how people in Massachusetts are doing financially and situate ourselves in comparison with other states, we have developed a financial well-being scorecard. We anticipate releasing a scorecard every other year to share data with residents and to inform our programs and policy. Our first scorecard is scheduled to be released later this month, and it will include data from an online survey of Massachusetts residents, along with references to national surveys and research studies. Now, to what you really want to hear. The scorecard reveals that while Massachusetts is home to a significant amount of wealth, earning gaps and unequal access to wealth building pathways contribute to a disparate financial landscape. I'm sure everyone in this room really does know that. And we all see references to the Fed's study that they did in terms of the wealth gap. The percentage of people living at or below the poverty level differs significantly by race. In Massachusetts, 20% of Hispanic people, 19% of Native people, 17% of Black people, and 11% of Asian people are at or below the poverty level. And between 2009 and 2025, the top 1% in Massachusetts received 58% of all income growth. The scorecard also puts into writing what we are all feeling. The cost of living is just too high. Nearly half of renters in Massachusetts are cost burdened, meaning they spend more than the 30% of their income on housing. And in Massachusetts, grocery store costs for a family of four are about $1,218, much higher compared to the national monthly average of roughly $1,012. The effects of the high cost of living are not only material, they're psychological. Residents express a substantial impact from financial stress, with 38% of surveyed respondents saying they will never have the things they want in life because of their financial situation. Again, this underscores the imperative need for financial education. The scorecard highlights that 69% of Massachusetts residents report having no access to personal finance instruction. Financial education is a foundational part of my strategy for building a more equitable economy. It is about giving everyone in Massachusetts, regardless of their background, race, or income level, an equal opportunity to thrive. We know there is no magic bullet solution. Our individual work must build upon one another to keep the needle moving forward. And we need to keep this momentum going. So I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but let's continue to work together to ensure economic opportunity and stability and security for everyone. I look forward to continuing to make progress on this important initiative as we build a more prosperous Massachusetts for ourselves and our children. Now, I'm going to add a little bit more to this. Instead of things getting better, we've all noticed things have gotten tougher. Gas prices, inflation, and a crazy world going on out there. But we cannot allow that to deter any of us from focusing on the basics and continuing to fight to ensure that people are getting the information and the resources they need. So I always say, never give up, persevere, keep on going. Don't let, I was going to use a bad word. Don't let them get you down. And together, when I'm in a room like this where everyone gets what I'm talking about, it certainly makes me feel like we're on the right track. So thank you.